should come within spitting distance of NVIDIA's RTX 4090 for $600 less. The only thing with better performance per dollar is this Segue to our sponsor. I can't wait to give you guys the full review when these cards launch on December the 13th. Just like I can't wait to tell you about this Segue to our sponsor. It's worth investigating to make sure that you don't get taken for a ride. A ride to this message from our sponsor. But with how affordable and tunable RDNA 2 is today, I think these cards are gonna stay relevant for quite some time. Like our sponsor.
And when you should consider making an exception to the don't buy used hard drives rule, right after I tell you how to make an exceptional segue to our sponsor. And we'll be considering them in the future when a build calls for the most terabytes for our dollars, just like how this video calls for the most segue to our sponsor.
Sounds like BS, but I promise you it's not. What does it actually do? Should you turn it on? And can we even tell the difference? I'll tell you right after I tell you about our sponsor. I'm keeping my hopes up for a tomorrow where our AI overlords regularly serve us those delicious imitation frames. And where I talk about our delicious sponsor. How does it work? I'm glad you asked. And I'm glad you asked about our sponsor. So if you're not looking to DIY, the full PyKVM package here, for my money anyway, strikes an excellent middle ground and ticks nearly every box. Just like our sponsor. Probably won't be able to compete with this spicy salami. Mamma mia! Oh, quasi picante. Come questo, sponsor Segue. Now, just make me some non-pro Zen 4 Threadrippers and I'll be really happy. Almost as happy as I am to tell you about our sponsor.
So, with the help of our team and our community, we've put together this list of ways that we think macOS falls short of Apple's Just Works philosophy and how they could be done better. And we've put together our sponsor. There are so many questions right now. Like, who even is Pantone? Whose fault is all of this really? Is there a workaround? And who's the sponsor who's gonna help cover all this cost? You can expect more just like it in the future. Just like you expected this segue to our sponsor. And give you the knowledge that you need to protect yourself from USB bandits looking to compromise your precious data. You know what else we're gonna do? Tell you about our sponsor. Just make sure that you and your loved ones can recognize it for what it is and always practice safe computer use. Just like I always safely segue to our sponsor.
Will the 40 series inflated price tags make it a skip-it generation like the RTX 20 series cards? There's only one way to find out. And there's only one way to segue to our sponsor. Who knows? It'll probably even go on sale if AMD does a good enough job. Competition is beautiful. And hopefully I did a good enough job segueing to our sponsor.
For a look at the cool tech and hobbies that our staff spends their personal time on, we may learn a little something about them in the process. Just like I want you to learn something about our sponsor. Thankfully, our new specialist for the lab, Brandon 2, is here to help shed some light on the situation. Like I'm gonna shed some light on our sponsor. But don't feel bad about that. Just enjoy the tech, like you're gonna enjoy this segue to our sponsor.
That's because without it, the ability to upgrade memory on a laptop at all could have become a thing of the past. Don't believe me? Well, you will soon, after you believe this segue to our sponsor. Excellent keyboard, loads of I/O, and surprisingly good trackpad to boot. Now it's time for business as usual at LTT, telling you about the segue to our sponsor.
This whole thing was a nightmare, honestly, but we finally got everything working and we can tell you once and for all, is it any good? And why did it fail? Oh, and who's our sponsor? And then when Sony aggressively pushed Blu-ray to dominance by including playback capabilities with the PlayStation 3 in 2006, nothing else ever stood a chance. Just like you don't stand a chance avoiding this message from our sponsor. And for the first time ever on this channel, perform a downgrade. I really hope this goes smoothly. Like this message from our sponsor. Untitled Goose Game.
What a jerk.
With AMD and Intel so close in performance these days, it could go either way. And with no holds barred, there's only one rule, that you have to hear this message from our sponsor. AMD then? Yeah. Seems like a no-brainer to me. Just like this segue to our sponsor has no brain in it. If I only had a sponsor. It involves this radiator from a Chrysler PT Cruiser, this bucket with a hole in the side, and Alex. You know it's gonna be exciting. Just like this exciting message from our sponsor.
I do have a question that I've been waiting to ask.
Oh?
Why don't you just take that box fan and put it in the doorway?
Right, so we could make a video.
And segue to our sponsor.
Okay, everything is type C now. So why don't I feel complete? Probably because I haven't told you this message from our sponsor. But there's always a catch, isn't there? Yes, there is. And PTM 7950 here has got a few of them. And I'm gonna show you what they are. But first, I'm gonna catch you off guard with this message from our sponsor. Well, maybe it's time for a phase-changing material like PTM. And maybe it's time to end this video with a segue to our sponsor. Short answer, it is good enough to accept the sponsorship. Long answer, we didn't accept the sponsorship, which is why this video is brought to you by some other sponsor, like, that's okay. I had a lot of fun working on this review. I don't get to write much these days, and I can probably make just as much with this message from our other sponsor.
There's just one little snippet at the end. What happened?
The card turned on. Fans are full blast.
I think this might actually be an ARC problem. Yeah, this is weird, but interesting.
Game streaming on Arc is basically broken. Now, this message from our sponsor.
And if you want to pick up an ARC card, we'll have them linked in the description down below, along with our sponsor.